It is 1 minute past 12. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Makonda. We often hear the saying that the youth are the future. But what happens when children take the troubled path, succumbing to crime, drug addiction, or self destruction? If the youth are the future, isn't it our responsibility to shape our future by shaping our youth? Our topic of discussion today is the importance of developing and mentoring the youth with Anisa Moosa, Islamic Care Alliance Chief Social Worker. Assalamu alaikum, Anisa. Shukran for joining me.
Wassalam to you, Sister Miriam, to all the listeners out there. Jazakallah for having me on your program today. Time seems to go really, really quickly, and we're not sure where and how it's spent.
Right, I apologize for that. That was my network acting up, but we are better now. All right, what are the benefits of mentoring? Because our discussion today, the topic rather, is the importance of developing and mentoring the youth. So, what are the benefits of it?
Okay, I think you mentioned a couple of points about youth and substance abuse and basically their behavior. So I think if we look at some of the outcomes of wanting to develop young people, is to bring about positive behavior change essentially. And with that, we would have to include education. So connectedness and motivation in school, wanting to become positively functioning adults, being successful academically, professionally, and even personally. And then also building connections with the community, in the community, with community members. At the end of the day, when we are working in the social sector, in the welfare sector, in the community development sector, we would also like to see that, there's some kind of succession going forward and that young people will continue a legacy to contribute to the community, especially with if you look at how COVID has taken over and how important it is for people to make positive contributions to the community. Then, on a personal level, to achieve personal goals successfully, um, to have positive peer relationships. So we talk about optimal functioning on various levels, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, and not forgetting socially and spiritually. Then also, we'd like to improve skills development and capacitate them. So, when we talk about youth development, you can have it's youth development, and then we also speak about mentorship. And with mentorship, there's elements around developing their skills in a workplace, but we can develop skills in a home environment as well. I mean, and we talk about gender roles, how mothers, how parents, caregivers, guardians can influence their children, whether it be in terms of values and as well as skills. And one very important thing, we spoke about relationships with peers, but also how to deal with negative peer influence. So, peer pressure, we always, when we speak about peer pressure, there's always a negative connotation with it. But just to remind listeners that we can influence our peers very, very positively.
Mm-hmm. All right, and what developmental and mentorship programs are available from Islamic Care Line or the partner organizations?
Okay, so in terms of the youth, so the Islamic Airline mainly attends to psychosocial needs. So we would go out to schools or madrasas and do presentations. The Green Crescent South Africa, which is also a sister organization affiliated with the Islamic Airline, would focus more on addiction. But preventative programs for young people. Then there's obviously the Muslim AIDS program, which, if some of you remember, some time ago, we used to focus a lot on life skills. But again, it's about positive behavior change around making responsible decisions, relationship decisions. And then there's organizations like the Balloon Foundation, Muslim Students Association, that the Islamic Airline has partnered with, networked with, worked with, done joint programs with. And those are good organizations to have, alhamdulillah, because it's a whole lot of young people, youth students who are energetic. They can relate to youth on the ground, who are not necessarily members. So working with them has been excellent. Training in terms of training them, training facilitators, running mentorship programs, working with their projects, having members of the care line who are also members of Balloon Foundation who represent us in certain projects.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, and we are talking about the importance of development and mentoring the youth. So, how important is it to develop and mentor our youth? And we know we know the saying that the youth are our future.
Okay. I think I can't I can't overemphasize the importance of youth development, but with youth development comes youth support. So whether we talk about mentorship, whether we talk about leadership, whether we talk about empowerment of youth, I think it's about accessing resources to them, giving them being positive influences, and it's my firm belief that we say the youth are the future, and then we worry about moral degeneration. We worry about whether the youth or even teenagers are going to fill shoes going forward, whether they're going to function effectively. And we mentioned how they need to be functioning optimally on all levels. But I think what's very, very important for parents, for educators, for adults in the community to be able to provide supportive environments for young people to be able to follow suit. And we need to be positive examples. So if you look at it, and like I said, my firm belief is that, if the adults of today are not practicing positive values and morals, our families are breaking down, marriages are breaking down, then what kind of value base and support and safety net are we providing for young people? So all the other things, the life coaching part of it, the development part of it, the skills part of it, the education part of it, the contributing to community part of it, falls flat when we as adults cannot provide for our youth and young people stability, emotional security, positive modeling, and I mentioned positive peer pressure. So how do we exercise positive peer pressure? How do we promote positive behavior when there isn't that kind of backing for young people to follow suit? And when we put them out into the world with so many issues from the family, what do they have to rely on?
Mm-hmm. You spoke about positive peer pressure on 2 occasions now. Can you please elaborate on it? What is positive peer pressure, and how do we identify it?
Okay, so it's basically the opposite of the stereotypical when we talk about peer pressure. So usually we would associate peer pressure, like I said, as being negative, which means that young people would give into. And again, can you see once again self-esteem, self-image, emotional security, confidence comes in, because with peer pressure, if I'm vulnerable, if I want acceptance, if I want approval from my peers, if I don't feel I'm good enough and I need to fit in, I would not have the confidence, the assertiveness, the courage to say, no, that doesn't sit well with me, right? So that's your negative peer pressure, where it's all around us. You mentioned substance abuse. We mentioned there's abusive relationships that young people get into because we don't have the tools and the skills to identify what healthy relationships are based on. We may be so exposed to negative relationships. That's all that we know. So we make life choices and decisions that are not necessarily healthy or good for us. So if you flip that around, and because in I think there's so much negative around us, unfortunately. It's so easy to give into that. When we stand firm to positive, so, we say in numbers, we strengthen numbers. So the more negative pressure you're going to get, chances are you could give into that. But if everybody stands firm to be being positive influence, and there is organizations like, let's say, for example, Balloon Foundation, Muslim Students Association, that provide platforms and spaces for young people to contribute positively, to grow positively. Those are positive, that's positive peer pressure, because a lot of young people are getting together to do positive things. And so it becomes more easier to be positively influenced in those contexts.
Mhm. And you also mentioned earlier about support. How can the youth get the support, and where can they get the support from?
Okay, so I was in my preparation for this program, and I was looking, and I picked up on a few C's around development, right? So it's quite interesting for us to keep that in mind. And the one is to build competence, right? So that's all part of the environment. So the environment needs to be favorable, conducive, and supportive to young people, right? And in that environment, what we need to be looking for is comfortable spaces, safe spaces, where young people are free to speak their mind, where they're supported in their opinions, they have the right to disagree, they can reach out for help if they need it. There has to be guidelines. So, even when we talk about parenting and we say, we'll reprimand a child or we'll discipline a child and say, okay, this is not right, but do we actually take the time to show them the right thing? So, and this is something we take for granted. We think that they know what's the right thing to do. So if we're going to correct behavior, we need to provide guidelines for correcting behavior. We need to allow for participation. We need to allow for them to be able to make mistakes when they need or when they don't know something. We need to create opportunities for them to grow. We need to include them in decision making, selectively so, guided decision making. Family structures need, like I mentioned, and I emphasize this, and I strongly believe that the primary socialization institute for every young person is their first social contact before they even enter a schooling context, right? They raised in a family, and so the values and the supportive context and from which they come from. And then second is the school environment, and we'll notice that today there's lots of bullying in schools, unfortunately. And that comes from, let's say, for example, less than healthy relationships at home where children learn unhealthy behaviors and carry it to the school. And so relationships at the school get negatively influenced. So that's in terms of your environment, which then is hopefully bring about. So if we can work on those, if we can address those and provide the kind of support that young people need, then we can build competence in them. Having positive views of their actions, having confidence in their actions, having self worth and self esteem, know their value, being able to speak their minds, like I say, being assertive, being able to give feedback when asked, having an opinion, sharing that opinion. I mentioned early in the program when we spoke about outcomes for youth development, I mentioned connectedness. So connectedness with one-on-one relationships, connectedness with institutions in the community, connectedness with the community at large, connectedness with peers. Then we speak about character. And that's also something. Remember that when young people developmentally they move from adolescence, and we all have heard about the identity crisis that young people face, and finding themselves, learning about who they are. That's very important for them, and so they build who they are from there, and it continues through their youth years, and that's where they learn to understand who they are, and they build character based on the values that they develop from there. And then being caring and compassionate. But I've added a couple of things, and for me, the one thing that's extremely important is communication. In order to achieve all of these things, we can have everything in place, but if it's not communicated effectively to our young people, then that's a strong link that's broken.
Mm-hmm. Right, so Anisa, please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and we'll continue thereafter, inshallah.
Ameen.
The Al Imdad Foundation's Canned Kurbani program allows you to provide a ready-to-eat, high-protein product to Syrian, Palestinian, and Rohingya refugees. For just 2,100 Rand, the Al Imdad Foundation will slaughter, can, and distribute your Kurbani to some of the world's neediest refugee communities. Share your Kurbani today. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
The two major dams for the Eastern Cape's biggest metro, Nelson Mandela Bay, are running dry with no major rain forecast. The city of Port Elizabeth is facing an unprecedented water crisis, home to an estimated 1.3 million people. The Al Fida Foundation needs your support to deliver water to impoverished areas. Support our water drive and help us raise monies for water delivery vehicles to ensure water distribution in areas of critical need. Donate your lillah to the Al Fida Foundation. Visit our website at www.alfida.co.za or contact us at 041 484 1288.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Sustain, sacrifice, share. This Eid al-Adha, donate your Qurbani through Africa Muslims Agency. We ensure that your Udhiyah Qurbani not only feeds the poor, but creates sustainable incomes for local farmers, brings the practice of sacrifice to the villages, and shares the spirit of Eid. Sponsor in South Africa for 2,400 Rand. Africa, 1,500 Rand. Palestine, 6,150 Rand. Syria, 4,000 Rand. Donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za or call 011-834-8685. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media, and on the Islamic Care Alliance segment, we are talking the importance of developing and mentoring the youth with Anisa Moosa, Islamic Care Alliance Chief Social Worker. Before the break, Anisa mentioned a couple of points which I took note of, like building competence, and connectedness and character, caring and communication, caring and compassion, as well as communication. The youth need these things in order to develop, and support is very crucial in mentorship and in development and developing the youth. And last week we spoke about support with Shuhaida Adam, and this just goes to show that support is necessary, support is important. Anisa, shukran for staying on the line, and welcome back. Now, how can we all do our bit in mentoring and developing the youth, especially as a community? Because it takes a village to raise a child, and if the youth are our future, we obviously need to play our part by shaping the youth. Anisa?
Communication. Gee, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Are we on?
Did you hear the question?
Okay, so I think for me, beyond community, so a lot of things that you mentioned, there's something that it's all based on, and that's relationships. I think it's so important that I remember that young people, human beings, healthy functioning on every level. We are social beings. We function based on and I mentioned previously also, I spoke about the family, I spoke about the school, we spoke about connectedness. It's about building positive relationships, and from there. So, in terms of your question, and how can we as support development, is about young people, a generation gap, huge generation, I think. Those generation gaps, trying to understand young people. And the only way we can do that is to build relationships with them, to get to know them, to listen. And I mentioned communication. So the foundation of effective communication is to listen. We often talk, we tell them, we explain to them, we think we're guiding them, that we have all the information. But I think sometimes we just need to stop and take the time to get to know and to get to learn and to understand where they're coming from. And that's the only way I think we can build a generation gap. We can learn to understand. We always say, oh, the youth of today are so messed up. They don't have any values. They're not committed to anything. And that's all. And already, I think, we set a tone and a precedent that our expectations of them are so low that we don't have confidence in them. So in order for them to build confidence, we need to have confidence in them. And for me, that's extremely important. I think more finer details around, we mentioned the developmental environment or the context. Are we providing all of that for them? Do they feel safe enough to risk? And also, I think there's a few things we need to take into consideration when we build those relations. What developmental stage are they in? What have their experiences been along each developmental stage? So it's all part of getting to know and understanding. And also in terms of like when we talk about mentors, we talk about leaders, we talk about people who are going to guide them, to the mentors. Like, we in the health sector, we talk about care of the caregivers. Do we give mentors the kind of support? Do they have the know-how on how to be effective mentors? And do they understand the mentorship relationship? Helping young people, so much of what I mentioned takes place outside a classroom. And yet, when we think about success, we talk about academic success, we talk about professional success. But what about day-to-day functioning and success in our homes? And that's something we need to start. Do young people have positive observations? They say children learn more from what they see rather than what they hear. So in the home environment, if I'm if I want to build positive relationships and I see the adults in my home fighting all the time and they're in conflict, if I don't know how to resolve positive conflict positively, I won't be able to, whether it be in my home, in a personal relationship, or it be in a work relationship. I could go out and get a very good job, but if I don't know, and we're going to hit negative experiences, we're going to encounter conflict. Do they have the know-how? Have they been taught, or has it been modeled? Another important thing to take into consideration is diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we make room for cultural diversity, religious diversity? Do young people know how to engage on different levels, in different contexts? Can they develop to the extent where they're dynamic and flexible and adaptable? Or do they only learn one thing and that's the only thing they understand? Then I again, setting developmentally appropriate goals. So there's some general goals that we covered, and then there's goals that are specific to the person, the developmental stage that they're in, their past life experiences, their possible outlook on life, and what it is that they want to achieve. So for me, again, I think if you were to ask me, I would say one of the most important things that we need to do is to build relationships. I'm going to say it again, to build relationships with the young people, to understand them, to get to know them, to create the opportunity for them to participate and help us figure out. It's not for us, like, we talk about the top down. It's not about the top down. It's getting to understand and moving from there.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier on, we were talking about constructive criticism and how to criticize young, or rather kids. We didn't get into criticizing young people. So how can we criticize young people constructively? Because, I mean, this is something that everybody needs to be able to handle. We need to be able to handle constructive criticism, and we also need to be able to give constructive criticism.
Okay, I think for me, when it comes to criticism, the most important thing is intention, right? Mm-hmm. So whenever I'm going to say something, and this doesn't only apply to youth, it applies to everybody. When we give feedback, so let's say we're talking about feedback rather than criticism, right? I need to ask myself, and often we don't do this. So when I say something, what's my purpose? If it's not going to provide any purpose, if there's no objective, why do I need to say it? Right? I'll take a simple example, right? And I know a way to think sometimes, or your personal image, right? Your self-image, your body image, right? And people will say, oh, you've put on weight. And I'm like, okay, but why? What is the purpose of saying it? Right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that if you're going to criticize or you're going to give feedback, then provide some kind of support or an alternative. So you're going, and what's very important, going back to basics around communication, is your nonverbals, your facial expression, your tone of voice, if it's harsh. It's not just the what. And I say this all the time, no matter what we do in life, it's not just the what, it's also the how. So if I'm going to say something, am I conscious of my tone? Is it harsh? Is it crude? Or is it gentle? And it's saying, okay, you did this way. And I'm just thinking, maybe it could be, or you could reflect on how someone is feeling. And you can say, you seem a bit anxious about this, or you did this way. So, when we criticize, or like I said, we could say, I'm not criticizing, I'm just going to give you a little bit of feedback. But what's also nice to do is to ask for feedback. So after I've already given my viewpoint and I said, look, I don't agree, I think this could have been done a little differently. What do you think? It's so important to get feedback from that person, because then they feel respected and then they feel like their opinion counts. And even it also creates an opportunity for them to disagree with your feedback. So if I might think it's a criticism and then I say, what do you think? And this person will say, no, I know you disagree with me, but I'm quite happy because this is what I was going to achieve. Or when we give support even, and this is important for me again, we assume that when I'm giving support, whether someone's going through grief or whatever, or they're sick and we say, I'm trying to support them, we need to ask them what they need. What is their need? Because we assume that a person needs us to be there all the time, and we assume that they need to go for counseling, or we assume, but we don't know what they want. Everybody's need for support is different. So again, I know I sidetracked a little bit, but for me, in a way, it's similar. We need to listen more than talk. So in light of giving criticism, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's just feedback, it's important to listen. So communication is two-way, basically.
All right, Anisa, shukran so much for your time. And unfortunately, that's all that we have for today. Always a pleasure chatting to you, and thank you once again.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum to all the listeners. Have a fabulous day, and I can only hope that our programs make a positive difference in your homes, in your lives, in your environment. Jazakallah.
Ameen, and have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Anisa Moosa, Chief Social Worker at Islamic Careline, taking us through the importance of developing and mentoring the youth. For more information, you can visit Islamic Careline. And you can visit their website, because we are in level 4, so you can't physically go and visit them at their offices. And if you have any further questions or comments, leave them in the comment section, and we will direct them to Islamic Careline, and they will assist you over there. I like making notes. It's very important, very necessary. All of this here, all of those little mind maps. Yeah. All right, it is 12:31. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk. Do stay with us. We will be right back.